Have you ever felt your entire world shatter in a single moment? That one breath where everything you thought was real suddenly slips away like sand between your fingers. I never thought I'd live through something like that, but I did, and it all began the night my wife stood in front of me, her hand wrapped tightly around her coworker's, her voice cutting straight through my chest like a blade, as she announced, "I'm leaving you for a real man." Those words weren't just a sentence, they were a storm. They tore down the walls I had built, the trust I had given, the love I had poured into our marriage for years. And as I looked at her, I couldn't believe this was the same woman I had shared dreams with, the same person who once looked at me like I was her whole world. I want you to stay with me until the end of this story, because while this night began with heartbreak, it didn't end the way she thought it would. I remember her eyes that evening. They weren't warm anymore. They carried this cold spark, as if she had been waiting for this moment, rehearsing it, almost enjoying the way it would wound me. And the man beside her, her coworker, smirked slightly like he had just won a prize. My fists clenched, not because I wanted to hit him, but because I was trying to keep myself from collapsing. The room around me seemed smaller, suffocating. I could hear my heartbeat louder than her words, but the words still echoed. "I'm leaving you for a real man." It played in my head again and again, mocking me, as if questioning whether I had ever been enough. But here's the thing, when someone throws that kind of poison at you, you either let it kill you slowly, or you decide to face it head on. I took a deep breath, forcing myself not to shout, not to cry, not to crumble. "A real man?" I asked quietly. "So the years I carried us through hard times, the nights I stayed awake to make sure you felt safe, the sacrifices I made, they weren't from a real man." She shifted uncomfortably, but she held on to his hand tighter, as if drawing courage from him. He looked down at her with that smug grin, and I realized this wasn't just about her leaving. This was about her trying to humiliate me, trying to make me feel small in front of him. And in that moment, I understood something. She wasn't stronger than me. She wasn't braver than me. She was weaker, hiding behind him because she couldn't face me with honesty. But let me take you back, because this moment didn't come out of nowhere. The cracks had been forming long before that night. I remember the first time she started working late. She'd come home tired, carrying stories about her office, about this funny guy who always made everyone laugh. I didn't think much of it. I trusted her. Love makes you blind sometimes. You want to believe the person beside you would never betray you. But then the laughter she once saved for me began to fade. Her eyes stopped lighting up when I entered the room. Our conversations became shorter, colder. She would scroll through her phone with a hidden smile, and when I asked what was funny, she'd just shake her head and say, "Nothing." That nothing began to feel like everything. Nights became silent battles. I'd lie next to her, staring at the ceiling, feeling her back turned toward me. The warmth that once connected us had disappeared, and I tried God. I planned small surprises. I cooked dinner. I took her out. I reminded her of the love we once had, but it was like pouring water into a cracked glass. No matter how much I gave, it slipped away. Then came the first lie. She told me she was at a work dinner, but I knew something was off. Her dress wasn't for a dinner, was for a date. Her perfume was heavier, her smile forced. I didn't confront her then. I swallowed my doubts, thinking maybe I was just paranoid. But deep down, I knew. Fast forward to that night, when she stood there bold enough to say it out loud, to declare her betrayal, while holding his hand in front of me. It was no longer suspicion, it was truth, standing right there in my living room. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why, to beg her to remember everything we had built together. But then I realized something. If she could stand there and call another man real, while throwing away years of love, she had already forgotten. And if she had forgotten, why should I remind her? Instead, I looked at her and said, "If you think he's a real man, then maybe you've forgotten what real love looks like." Her smile faltered. The coworker shifted awkwardly, his arrogance dimming. She expected me to break down, to beg, to fight for her. But I didn't, because in that moment, I saw her for what she really was, someone who confused attention with love, someone who thought betrayal was bravery. I stepped back, my voice steady. "Go, if that's what you want, but don't think you'll find the happiness you're searching for, because real happiness doesn't come from destroying someone who loved you." She didn't move. Her hand loosened in his, just slightly. He glanced at her, annoyed, as if she was supposed to follow through without hesitation. And that's when I realized she didn't expect me to let her go so easily. She thought I'd fight, that I'd cling, that I'd make her feel powerful. But I didn't give her that satisfaction. Days passed after that night. The house felt empty, like a graveyard of memories. Every corner reminded me of her laugh, her touch, her voice, but slowly, the silence became my friend. The pain was still there, but it started shaping me into someone stronger. I focused on myself. I picked up hobbies I had left behind. I reconnected with friends I had ignored because I was too busy trying to fix a marriage that was already broken. And little by little, I found pieces of myself that I thought I had lost. Meanwhile, her world wasn't as perfect as she thought. I heard whispers from mutual friends. Her real man wasn't so real after all. He wasn't faithful, not even to her. The same charm he used to lure her away was now being spent on others. And suddenly, she was the one left feeling betrayed. She came back one afternoon, knocking on my door. Her eyes weren't cold anymore. They were desperate, wet with tears. She whispered, "I made a mistake." I looked at her for a long time. The woman who once broke me was now standing broken herself. But here's the truth. I didn't feel the same pain anymore. I didn't feel the same love either. All I felt was clarity. I told her, "You didn't just make a mistake. You destroyed us, and I can't rebuild something you chose to burn." Her tears fell. Her voice cracked as she begged. But I knew, deep in my heart, that some doors once closed should never be opened again. So I closed the door gently, not in anger, but in peace, because I finally understood her leaving wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of mine. And now, when I look back at that night, when she held another man's hand and called him real, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel grateful, because in losing her, I found myself. So if you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, remember this. Sometimes people leave not because you're lacking, but because they are. And their absence often clears the path for your strength, your healing, your true happiness. Stay until the end of your own pain, because on the other side of it, you'll discover a version of yourself you never thought existed. And that's the story of how my wife announced she was leaving me for a real man, holding her coworker's hand. But she didn't find what she thought she would, because the truth is, a real man doesn't need to prove himself by stealing someone else's love. A real man stands strong, even when the person he loves tries to break him. So, if you're watching this, take this lesson with you. Heartbreak doesn't define you. How you rise after it does. If this story touched your heart, stay strong and always remember your worth is never measured by someone who couldn't see it.